This session, we're talking about communicating the value of marketing to the board, which is something which we touched on in our opening session this morning. And I think it's, hopefully you'll agree with me, that B2B marketing's come an awful long way in the last 20 years. As a profession, as an industry, it's more robust, it's more effective, it's more creative, more respected than ever before. But the one area where it struggles is to make an impact in terms of representation at the board. I don't know if you saw, there was some new research that came out from an agency called Transmission that came out last week at Cannes, and they did some research into the US Fortune 1000 companies, and they established that only 40 companies of the Fortune 1000 had a board-level marketer, right? So that's 4%. My advanced mathematics tells us 4%, which is a staggeringly, terrifyingly disappointing thing. I'm not massively surprised, but it's still really, really terrifying that that's the level at which we have marketing on the board. Now, you could make an argument, okay, and I think this is a very valuable one. Marketing doesn't have to be on the board to make an impact. Marketing is about communicating value to the board. And at Propolis, we believe in the notion of a commercial marketer, where you have the ability where it's all about actually developing around a set of skills in order to communicate with the board, to talk to them, not necessarily being part of it, but to talk to them. But in this session, we want to explore what that process looked like, how marketing, particularly marketing leaders, but also members of the marketing team, should be involved in that conversation to communicate that. And it's likely the marketing leader is going to be the person most responsible for that because they are more likely to be the interface. But at the same time, everyone's got a role to play in that. So we've got a fantastic panel of marketers to talk about this, and I'm going to introduce them or ask them. Hope we can see. There we go. It's up to me to move this on, isn't it? There we go. That's our panel of marketers here to talk about this. So I'm going to ask them in turn to introduce themselves. We're going to say we've got Graham, Nimi, and John. But let's start with Graham. Tell us about who you are, where'd you come from, what's your experience as a marketer in B2B?
Morning. My experience is so much that I now start downplaying how long I've been doing this rather than emphasizing how many years I've been doing it. Ed tech, ad tech, and HR tech for the last kind of 15 years of that, and attracted to marketing functions that are misfiring, that don't have a commercial edge to them. So I can talk a little bit about how you go through that transformation from an unrespected marketing department to one that's critical to the business.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Graham. Nimi.
Hi, Nimi. I'm Nimi, Business Marketing Director for Virgin Media O2. Been at this gig for a year. My background is actually sales and commercial. And I believe one of the reasons I was hired into this role was to make marketing more commercial. As a business, we are at a very interesting point where Virgin Media and O2 came together 3 years ago. There isn't that much visibility on the Virgin Media O2 brand versus the other two. So trying to create that brand presence and brand reputation while at the same time delivering to the commercial goals is a daily challenge.
Okay, fantastic. I can imagine there's a lot to unpack in that as well. Probably more than we've got time for in this session, but fascinating problem to have. Thank you, Nimi, for joining us today. And John, last but not least.
Thank you. I'm John Watton. I've been a marketing leader at a range of B2B software companies for many years. A range of sizes. My last year is probably a great year of extremes. I led EMEA marketing for VMware, which was a $4 billion business. That's not a Joe Biden moment, $4 billion. And now I'm the CMO of a small startup with 6 people and no revenue. So so there you go. The roller coaster of B2B, Joel.
I suspect it's a little bit more flexible in terms of communication structure.
And I am on the board.
And you're on the board, there we go. So you're one of the rarities in that. Excellent, thank you all of you. So let's set the scene to start this. Okay, is it fair to say that, and I think we touched on this in an excellent first session about brand. We talked about the different languages that marketing and the board speak. Is it true, would you agree that marketing and the board often speak different languages? If you're trying to pioneer or to champion marketing, you've kind of got to learn to speak their language, translate, or at least localize. Let's start with you, John. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And also, I think, first of all, what do we mean by the board?
Right.
When I was at Adobe or Microsoft, the board is a regulatory, influential group, and there's very few from the operational team on that.
Right.
I guess most of us there typically work with an executive leadership team or a senior leadership team, and the question is the CMO on that team, which is the CEO, the COO, the CFO, or whatever. And I think, for marketing to be at whatever the leadership table is, who's trying to operate the business, we absolutely need to translate all the good stuff that we do And most CMOs now are overwhelmed because we've got to do brand, you've got to do demand, you've got to think about the product, you've got to think about pricing. You're probably the individual 10 years ago that had to introduce social media into your business, get the salespeople enabled, get the business being brand evangelists. Now you're the person who's got to bring AI into the business. So there's a lot that we get lost in, quite rightly, in the operational, but we need to take all of that and simplify it to the board and link it to really, what they care about, the leadership team, which is typically the sanity metrics, which is a combination of revenue or profit. So those are the two things. So yes, we do need that translation.
Okay, and so to use the word simplify, Nimi, perhaps, is it simplify or is it relevant size? Is that a word? Make relevant?
It is now.
It is. There we go. Quite a new word this morning. We're breaking new ground every day. Nimi, tell us about your perspective on this. Is it simplification, or is it just about telling them the thing that they need to know, the right things?
I think it's about thinking of the board as you would as any customer. What do they want to know? What are their key challenges, what are their strategic priorities, and how you can then define how you're using the marketing resources and priorities aligned to those strategic priorities. I think for me, it starts with that alignment, understanding what the board priorities and aligning marketing to it. I think data as well plays a really big role in alignment and moving away from the usual metrics of MQLs or leads, but really thinking about how you're helping the business through that customer journey, making sure that we have customer experience at the heart of it, ultimately to translate into what the strategic priorities are of the board.
And tell us a bit about your situation. To answer John's point there around actually, what do you mean by the board? What's the situation in BMO2? Is it a senior leadership team? Is it a board, or what? Where does marketing interface in with whom?
So the board, as John said, is the regulatory board. So you've got the CEO and the CFO on it. But then we have the executive committee, which is made up of leaders of the B2B division, operations, consumer director, HR director, and CTO, and so on. Marketing is really at that senior leadership team, where we have an EC member aligned to that particular division, and then marketing is part of that senior leadership team, really driving some of those key decisions in delivering that business performance.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. It's great to understand the different contexts. Graham, where does this relate to you at ADP?
So ADP has every possible variant of structure and size. It's a 75-year-old American-parented business with separate companies that it acquired around the world with their own management teams that it's now putting together into regional structures. So I lead the international business. So that means we have a board, which is a regulatory organization in the US. We have a senior leadership team, which has a CMO that sits on it. We then have an international senior leadership team, which I sit on, and then each country has their own senior leadership team. And part of our success has been getting marketers into the room in those country teams. The gentleman earlier mentioned having 2 marketers in Australia. I have 1 marketer in Australia who's gone from being a relatively junior field marketer to sitting in the executive team for Australia, advising on the strategy for a new product launch. So every variant of the model, and it's about meeting the business where it needs to meet marketing. And I think I take issue a little bit with the translation, because I think it's actually suggests that what we're doing is right and the rest of the business doesn't understand us. I go into a lot of organizations over the last 30 years where what we're doing is fundamentally wrong. We're in our own heads, in our own bubble. We're not focused on the impact that the function has on the business, and then we wonder why the business doesn't understand us. So if you think about it as translating, you're just sitting here doing your thing. If you think about, as you were saying, cascading it all the way through the business so that you start from the business objectives, that's, I think, when you can drive real change.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, you're going to say that.
No, and I was going to say, having experienced those sorts of structures as well, what you tend to find is even within marketing, the teams get fragmented. And, talking to a CMO last week in a big corporation, the challenge, from the sales organization is that there is no plan. They don't even know what the plan is, because each sort of program or initiative is kind of being divided up. So you're probably doing you may be doing the right or wrong thing, but even presenting that is a challenge for us, because for probably good reason, it's all being kind of fragmented out, and that's a big challenge to bring together, to have a holistic view of the impact that marketing is having on the business based on the business objectives, which can be varied. We talk a lot about revenue, and that's a key part of it. I've been in organizations where they're very much about repositioning, remessaging, more brand type things, and the CMO leans more towards that side of things than necessarily the revenue. So,
Right.
it depends on the organisation as well.
I could completely say, Nibby, you're going to come in there.
I was going to say, I guess there's something there around not just alignment with the strategic priorities of the board, but within marketing as well,
Yes.
being really aligned on what the
Yes.
common goals are and ensuring that those common goals are
Yes.
aligned to the
Yes.
business goals.
If I may, it's like the England high press that's needed at the moment in the Euros. You all need to go together. And if it's just one person doing it, maybe the CMO, then you need that. It's a team effort
Exactly.
to.
Very good. We've got to relate to
Thank you.
the elections and the
Yeah.
football.
It was
We're still able
important.
to talk about the football.
I've
for another week.
got the weather in my back pocket.
There we go. That's good. We're keeping these things important. It's basically cliche bingo, and I think we're winning at the moment. So that's
Yeah.
good. Well, I think Graham makes a very good point. It's not just it's not just necessarily a kind of linear top-down process. It can be potentially be highly matrixed. There's lots of different ways with this marketing, and it's not just necessarily the marketing leader that needs to interface or consider the implications of it. It can be throughout the team. It can be different touch points, different engagements, different levels. So everyone's got to consider it. And I guess one of the challenges that historically the accusations have been leveled at marketing is actual financial acumen, the ability to read a spreadsheet and be financially kind of coherent or credible at that level. I mean, Nimi, you're from a sales background, right? So you don't. So I wish, at the risk of trotting out a cliche, that's certainly not going to be one of your challenges. But have you seen that with marketing people? Is that an issue that you've seen at all?
I think it is an issue at times, especially when you have, marketeers who have not been aligned to commercial objectives of the business, and it's all down to completely different metrics on, well, we're doing this, we know what we're doing, kind of leave us alone. So it's a journey on how you actually bring down the entire department and the entire team to a level of commercial understanding, to understand the activities that they're doing, how is that aligned to the commercial objectives of the organization. It's a journey. I wouldn't say everybody gets it, but there are pockets where that commercial acumen is really strong, and that's where you can bring in people from the outside into your organization to help build some of that knowledge and understanding throughout the department.
Yeah, I guess, as you say, it's never going to be, you can never train everyone everything at the same pace all the time for all sorts of reasons. It's just not practical and credible. Graham, how have you addressed that? Do you in terms of kind of cascading that knowledge down, I guess there's no simple solution to this.
I mean, it starts with, actually, is the board or the leadership team clear on what they want from marketing? That's often surprisingly ambiguous for an organization. So if you're interviewing for a job, those are good questions to ask and dig into. What does success look like for marketing? I work in a very sales-oriented business, and it was very clear that the success of marketing is about the bookings number in the month, the quarter, the year. So we actually talked about the business, and we decided that we were running at well below 30% of a sales contribution. So a good stretch target that the sales organization could buy into is that marketing would deliver 30% of the sales number that they would close. And then working through our teams around the world to make sure that they understood how in their country, in their particular segment or in their market, they contributed towards that 30% number. It just made it very simple. You talk about the sales team understanding the plan. You get 5-10 minutes at sales kickoff in a very sales-oriented business. At the end, when everyone's drunk and already thinking about the next stages of dealing with a hangover. So that 30%, that's what you say in the bar when you're with them, consistently, rigorously in every conversation. It opens every presentation, and then you get to the metric, and the metric isn't yours to own. The metric is the CFO's. So some very wise person many, many years ago said to me, you get the CFO that you deserve. So part of my strategy going into ADP was to partner with the CFO, the many CFOs that we have in our business, and to make sure that they understood what we were trying to achieve and that they agreed the metrics. So that as we targeted 30% of sales, it was the finance function saying whether we were hitting that target. And then everybody could align to the fact that the CFO was the one having the conversation.
I think you've touched on something, there's a similar sort of thread to that. So having that neutral sort of independent operations kind of view of things and championing that through the business from a business metrics point of view. And I think as well, taking some of the emotion out within marketing and trying to centralize some of that systems and infrastructure and reporting. So the best organizations I've been at who are good at having a marketing team that talks commercial values, where we took the decision to centralize it into a marketing ops team and then empower the team with the dashboards and the KPIs, because we were spending in a 1 hour meeting 55 minutes arguing over whose spreadsheet was right, the 5 minutes actually doing something about it. And then, whether you agree with it or not, at least, we spent 5 minutes understanding a dashboard and then 55 minutes trying to make a decision using the insight to drive that. So taking the emotion out of that, everyone's view of the slice that they've taken out, and I think that's really important both from a business operations and a marketing operation.
One example, we should take emotion out of B2B marketing, which is often not what we talk about, it's the way around. Putting it back in again is a challenge.
Well,
Go on, sorry.
No, I mean, we're not very good at processes and systems.
No, that's
and it's needed, unfortunately.
And it's very needed. But just flipping that right back to the beginning, though, it's a very good example about how getting people on the same page is really important, and how the dashboards and the technology allow that. Is that then the answer to the question about how you cascade that knowledge about commercials and down? If you haven't, you can't necessarily put everyone on a financial literacy course.
No.
But it's just more about the right behaviours, it's the right knowledge, it's agreeing on the terms. That's the best answer to the question about how you disseminate creative acumen amongst the team.
I mean, the last 3 or 4 marketing teams that I've kind of come into, this has been the challenge, is really trying to get everyone to think around the impact of what they do. So it is operationalizing it just in your day-to-day behavior. Every team meeting, should start with some kind of, and listen, it's baby steps. So just get the team to start to lead with data. It might be the wrong data, and we can work on that. But every team meeting, start with that. Put up a dashboard, whether it's looking at an event or running digital programs, or whether it's kind of brand or executive engagement, all those things. Start with the data, and just get people into the habit of thinking about the numbers, and then we can sort of guide them towards what are the right numbers.
Nimi's nodding.
I agree. I think it's not about striving for perfection.
No.
It's about working with what you have, gaining an understanding, and then iterating as you go along. And just having that dashboard at the start of the meeting just aligns the mind on this is the bit that we're focusing on versus something that's just done on the side or 5 minutes later. And I agree on the alignment on the metrics. There needs to be one single source of data. We've been the same, where you spend an hour or 45 minutes of an hour-long meeting arguing whether the numbers are right or not, versus, okay, these are what the numbers are telling us, what do we need to do on the back of it?
Yeah.
So that alignment of the data is really key, that you use that single source of data. But again, let's not strive for perfection. Let's work with what we have and iterate.
I want to keep reinforcing this, but I don't want to sound patronising at the same time. This is not just something which the marketing leader should do to the rest of the marketing team. I'm imagining it has to be something which everyone has to buy into and understand the importance of, and then live and breathe. It's not just, they're talking to me about the dashboard, whatever. I'll carry on creating pretty pictures over here. It's something which everyone's got to buy into and demonstrably buy into. Nimi, I want to give you the chance to answer on that one first.
Definitely. It's about empowering the marketing teams to use that data to their advantage. And when they see how having that power of data helps them to be better marketeers, better alignment with sales, people automatically buy into it versus being a top-down approach on these are the metrics we're going to measure.
Yeah, okay. John, sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I mean, it then bleeds into how, what sort of marketing team you want to be.
Yeah.
So you put it into sort of effective your OKRs or your KPIs for the team. We want to be this sort of marketing team. We want to be a marketing team that drives business value. The gentleman from Vertiv had that sort of, there's like the chart of what marketing is, growing existing accounts and doing things profitably and acquiring new accounts. And then, you want to create a vision for what marketing means in your organization. And part of it is knowing your numbers and being data driven is a key part of it. And just to reply to your point, creativity is a part of it. Great marketing is art and science, but you need to bake this into, really, this is who we want to be. This is how we want to...
It's cultural.
Yeah.
It's deeply cultural within the organization. Yeah. So it's fascinating. It's not just around, these are the behaviors, it's actually more about belief systems as well.
Yeah.
Graham, what do you think about that? I mean, do you buy into this notion that we're kind of forming here?
I think it comes also from how you signal as a leader to the business and the things that you give time to. So yes, we start with a dashboard in people's QBRs, but in every one of my open house per month, we start talking about how is the business overall doing? How is the sales performance of the organization? Are we celebrating? Are we challenged? Where are we challenged? And then it's about making sure that the marketing team can find joy in that. For a lot of marketers, that notion that, you're going to be corporately driven by a number feels like a straitjacket, or it's a risk or an exposure. So it's de-risking that. It's about celebrating sometimes when you miss the mark. There's a lovely piece in the book, An American Icon. We're talking about the turnaround at Ford. And the Ford managers had got themselves into such a position that they were presenting dashboards. The company's hemorrhaging red ink, and there's no red lights on the dashboards. There's only ambers and greens. And I go in, and many times you'll go in and there's only amber and green because it's too scary to admit to a failure.
Yeah.
And yet failure is where some of the fun comes from. Oh, we tried really hard to do this. And part of that job about the commercial number is you're talking about the overall impact on the business. So if we're having a bad time in Spain because we haven't got a great product, so be it. Spain's not going to be at 30%. If we're having a great time in Australia because I've got a marketer who's absolutely killing it, that marketer is going to get the spotlight at the next awards opportunity, and they're going to get to showcase their story to inspire the marketer in Spain that when they get their new product, they're going to be able to do. So it is metrics, it is shared success, and sitting down with the sales leader and the CFO to actually hammer out what good looks like, and then it's about merchandising that.
Yep.
And the other thing is when you have a dashboard, just make it available to everyone, right? I go into
Democratization of data, isn't it?
yeah, just all of the country general managers, all of the sales leaders, any salesperson can pick up the dashboard, look at it and say, what's been the performance of marketing on my patch?
Yeah.
And they do. And they'll come in and they'll have a conversation, and then you're in a one-to-one conversation with them that said, okay, but here's how many leads you rejected because they weren't sufficiently qualified. Here's how long it takes you to move a deal through to closure. Here's what best in class looks like. Here's everyone who went to President's Club, look at their performance on what they're doing with the sales leads. And you'll be surprised how quickly those conversations go away. Yes, you have a couple of months of awkward moments where somebody's like, hey, over here, I don't agree with this data point. And if you've got the data and if you can enjoy the conversation and learn from what they're giving you and push back, it becomes a two-way creative dialogue between the teams.
And it takes out the subjectivity, the classic, what have you done to me lately? Or marketing is crap. And I go, oh, so I say, okay, show me the numbers that say that, because I've got different numbers on the dashboard that
we've gone from that to the marketing team getting a standing ovation at the most recent sales conference from the sales.
I don't believe it.
Oh, totally did.
We went photographic evidence, Graham, I think. But I'm glad we segued into sales, and which was beautifully my next question here. And Nimi, obviously, we can't have a conversation about showing commercial success for marketing without talking about sales. I mean, Nimi, you're a former sales revenue leader, so is it in terms of how are you finding that transition of I mean, I'm imagining as a forward-thinking person, you're always trying to drive alignment from the other side. Now you're on the marketing side trying to drive alignment with sales. Is that like pushing an open door, or is it, or how have you found the challenges inherent in doing that?
I think where we found success is where the role of sales and marketing has been more of a partnership on the combined success of the business versus marketing just give us leads, you're not giving us enough leads, more leads.
Yep.
They're saying actually the leads that are coming through, what quality are they? How are we driving them to closure? How are we maximizing average order value? So when you feel their pain on, it's not just about passing over leads and walking away, it's helping them close that is where we're finding a lot of success. Where we're not finding success is where we are not able to help them through that funnel and to closure. So it's a journey. The role of marketing as well within Virgin Media O2 is shifting a bit to being just the lead generation engine to actually making sure that we are, actually closing business, given some of those large corporates and public sector that we deal with.
And then I'm imagining then, because obviously we need to talk about the sales and marketing alignment, we always need to talk about sales and marketing alignment, and we always will need to talk about sales and marketing alignment because it's B2B marketing. But at the same time, the bigger picture is about then talking back up to the board, communicating commercial value. So I imagine that it's also about a united front. It's about having, or being, if not united front, then being at least cohesive and consistent in what you're saying. Is that a fair assumption?
That's fair. So the recent presentation to our EC member wasn't a sales and marketing plan, it was a plan. And either my marketing lead or the sales lead could just stand up and talk to that plan versus each playing their part in that presentation, which is where I think it comes together really well and shows that alignment where we all know what the plan is and we're delivering to it.
John, is that, you recognize that scenario? Is that
absolutely. I mean, at VMware, we got a lot more alignment because actually the CMO reported into the Chief Operating Officer, and we had a go-to-market team. So say the CRO, the CMO, the Chief Communications Officer, and then the GTM office lead reported into the President. So you got that sort of cohesivity of plan. So there was just a plan. And interestingly, we shifted from kind of Cub Scout football, kind of following everything around, and everyone chasing the same accounts to trying maintaining our position. So the ask moved from sort of general demand gen and just a discussion over leads. A company like VMware has a huge incumbent customer base where most of our revenue came from existing customers, and then marketing was kind of marketing into those. So we divided it out. ABM and the sales team wanted engagement. They wanted to see their top accounts were being engaged because they had huge account teams generating business. And then we went into the mid-market to go and reach those accounts they couldn't reach, and then partner channels as well. So it was kind of fine-tuning. And actually, we moved towards more of a strategic account engagement model than like a demand gen.
Yeah.
So it does shift based on what the business is recognizing where the opportunity is for the company.
And cohesivity is a new word as well for today, which is good. So, Graham, how does this scenario compare with what you've experienced or what you're doing right now in terms of this alignment notion?
So, yeah, when you think about the breadth, every company needs payroll. By the way, when you get back, go say hi to your payroll person and just say thanks for getting you paid, because that's the one part of the business that when it goes wrong, everybody knows that it goes wrong. So a technology change in payroll is a high stakes decision for an organization. But we do that for small business, we do it for mid-market, we do it for enterprise, we do it for global, we do it in 140 countries. So there's a lot of complexity across that landscape. So I've always found it useful to try and identify what's the principal point of constraint in your organization today for what you're trying to achieve. And how do you go after that, right? If your principal point of constraint is your product is lagging the market, well, it doesn't matter how much lipstick you put on that pig, it's still going to lag the market, right? Until you can actually invest. So your job as a marketer is to create space for the product to improve. If your problem is that you are not in a position of brand awareness because you're number 4 or 5 in a market. So it's identifying those points of constraint and then making sure that you agree with your stakeholders which ones marketing are going to go after, and how that breaks out per segment, and then how that breaks out by resource. And that ends up with the point that you end up saying no a lot of the time, because you go through a stack ranking of these are all the constraints, these are all of the issues, this is where you're looking for growth. We can't do everything. Which ones are we going to prioritize? Which ones are we jointly going to win on? And then how does success there fuel into the business case for further investment and growth? And it is about framing it around this investment rather than cost, and just getting the whole organisation to think
I
about
think
that.
that hopefully segues quite nicely to a conversation about product and pricing. But before we get into that, actually one of the B2B marketing team, we don't have our water at the front, so if someone from Amy or Sarah could grab some. Okay. Right. What? Okay, thank you.
Who needs a water?
We'll deal with that. So, in terms of obviously, we've talked about a lot of marketing gets only 2 of the 4 P's of a major bearing. Product and pricing are major bearing on marketing success, but often they get kind of forgotten. So, how important is this kind of involvement in this discussion that actually, products and pricing? I know it's something you feel quite passionate about, into actually enabling marketing to have that commercial conversation with the board.
Yeah, I get very passionate about the narrowing and communication of marketing. It's a fundamental weakness for most marketing departments in most organizations is you're not in the room when the meaningful conversations happen. Product is where the value proposition gets realized. It's actually where the buyer gets what they're looking for. And not only in consuming the product, but actually the outcome that they're aiming for from the product. So it is vitally important that the customer's need is part of that conversation. And product organizations, in my experience, have their own needs and ambitions. I'll pass them along, shall I? Who would like a glass of water? The organizations have their own needs and ambitions. Engineers tend to build what engineers want. Salespeople sell what they think they heard, and you end up with a disconnect. And that's the opportunity then for marketing in the middle to say, okay, if we're aligned on revenue and I've got a sales team selling something, and a product that does something subtly different because nobody thought to talk to the 2 pieces, and I've got a customer who actually wants it to do something else, that's a role that marketing can play. That is a place that only marketing can play in terms of the deep customer insight. So that means doing research in markets, whether they're mature markets or whether you're going in for the first time. It means having a conversation with the engineers to understand why they built what they built and what they thought they were building, and then holding up a mirror and showing them the reality of the customer experience doesn't necessarily match what they thought they were building. And then it's rigorous enablement and discussion with the sales team that you're not selling what you think you're selling what the buyer actually needs. And sometimes there's room to color in around the edges, but oftentimes there isn't.
Yeah.
And it comes from painful experience, right? I had a new marketer join me in Germany. We'd been launching this product and we were running it. And this new product marketer joined, and he was very bashful. He didn't really know how to tell me, but he said, "You're doing a fabulous job of generating demand for our competitors." I was like, I'm sorry, what? We're running out this global program. It's something I'm very proud of. And he said, yeah, the problem is the product doesn't perform the way you think it does here. It's been built somewhere else and it's got 3 or 4 different modules. So we get to the second demo, everybody wants this thing on a single platform. That's the vision, that's the sell, that's the pipeline, that's what everyone's excited about. And then you do the product demo and it falls apart on the second demo. And now there are people who do it on a single platform. And when we did it, we were the first people doing it. So that level of insight, we could have spent months, years, wondering why Germany wasn't working. And then we cracked it. And Germany is now working because we went after the product problem and solved it.
So it's a great example. Nimi, how does this, first of all, do you agree with Graham's point?
100%. I think we, as marketeers, need to bring in that voice of the customer as far as product development is concerned or product roadmaps is concerned. Otherwise, the danger is that operates in silos without really understanding what outcomes the customers want to meet, what are their needs, and making sure that is an intrinsic part of any product development roadmap. Not just what we are seeing from research and market, but from what we're getting from customer experience surveys. How do we make sure that that is absolutely inputted at the start of any product development cycle and then iterated as we go along? Otherwise, you end up with a mismatch, as you said, a product that actually doesn't deliver what the customer wants.
Is there a disconnect, and I'm asking some genuine point of naivety, between the ability to engage the customer base or prospect base with research and the ability of the willingness of the product team to actually listen to that? Because I guess marketing can own research, but it doesn't mean that. Is there a disconnect there, or is it inherently you can make that kind of bridge that gap?
I don't think there's a complete disconnect, but at the same time, I don't think it's completely aligned.
Right.
There is a case of pushing through doors and making sure that voice is heard.
Okay.
And again, coming back to data and making sure that we are bringing those customer proof points, those survey insights to back it up and say, well, this is what the product needs to do, versus just having an opinion.
So, and John, how is that?
Just on that, Joel, there's a danger that the engineers talk to the existing customers.
Yes.
Rather than to the prospect market that you're going after, right? And that distorts the view as well. So.
Yeah, I completely appreciate that. It's not just about those 5 tame customers you've got. John, what's your experience of this? Do you agree with this premise that marketing should be involved in that product?
Well, there's a bigger question because there is typically a marketing team who's working on product pricing. It's whether it sits in your central marketing team, or it's product marketing that sits in the business units, and that's a structure that's often replicated in many large organizations. And then it becomes a partnership between the sort of brand, demand, field, PR, AR, research group, and then the product group who are doing these kind of product pricing analysis. So that's one thing. So there's often a teaming that's needed because there are many marketers in different parts. It's not just one team, and then there's the product team. The second thing I'd say is that it is shifting with, my segment is very much around, SaaS, software as a service, and delivering software as a service products means that suddenly your product is your marketing. And so there's 2 things. One, marketing is often asked to lead it because we've tended to move to more of a blended high touch, low touch, no touch marketing model. And marketing is often asked to lead that no touch model, which is freemium, self-serve. So we're often understanding better. We're closer to the customer. Yeah. Right. So there's that, and out of that we get to understand how the product's being used and informing the decision. And then overall, with some of the ABM tools that we've seen, we have much more insight in terms of what the customers are doing, what they like, what they don't like, in our sort of non-product things. So our website and so on. So we suddenly have ability to step back in to be that voice of the customer, which we may have kind of deferred a little bit over the course of time.
That's interesting. So it's about utilising the resources that you have in terms of insights and data to be able to start to tell that story, even if there wasn't the legacy of being able to do that in the past.
And in the software as a service, it becomes less about acquisition; it's more about retention and renewal. So marketers are thinking more about what customer value do we need to deliver, and we're typically then moving our budgets to be more into the sort of customer retention than we ever have before. So there is in some segments like SaaS, there is a shift. It means we are becoming more closer to the customer over time.
I think segments like SaaS also help to drive behaviour in other aspects of B2B as well. They kind of an overspill in terms of behaviour and activities. We've had a couple of minutes for questions. Anybody like to ask a question of this incredibly august, informed panel? Come on, who's brave? Who's feeling brave today? There we go. Who's that over there? If someone's going to ask questions, it's always going to be Chris. Come on, Chris. Let's hear what you've got to say. Chris Wilson from Earnest. Here he is.
Hi, everyone. Have you ever seen any complete misconceptions that you have to address with leadership teams where they've got expectations of marketing that are completely out of whack? Because you talked about understanding what leadership teams or boards want of marketing is sometimes what they want completely wrong.
Anyone want to pick that one up? Pretty complete misconceptions. Have you seen that? Graham, go on.
There's this odd tension that, and for me, it's that challenge of marketing for the last 10 years, where marketing is all powerful and can achieve all things, but can't be measured and doesn't add value. So they want marketing, but they can't define what good looks like. And it'll depend on their most recent touch point, either as a consumer or as in an organization. So yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges. And the opportunity is, how do you connect what you're good at as a team and make that the thing that they care about? And it goes back to that, again, the theory of constraints. What's the thing that's holding the business back that you and your organization can influence, and you can prove that you can influence, to unlock the wider conversation? And then from there, you go from delivering what they think they need to delivering what they actually need, which sounds incredibly egotistical as a marketer, but we're the closest to the market and to the customer. So if we don't have that view, who does?
Yep.
Either of you want to comment on that one? You okay?
Well, I mean, it's the continual battle. I've had the extremes. I've had the misconception that marketing can't generate any revenue for the business on one end from a CRO. The other, the classic, we've got a pipeline gap. Can you create some business in the next week? And I'm like, okay. So let's just walk this through. We generate a lead right now. Let's say it's hot to trot. How long does it take your sales team to close it? 3 to 6 months. And you want revenue now. And I still have that. And then a week later, so where's the revenue? Where's the revenue? And so I've seen the extremes. And then when I joined one company, I said managing a big team, big targets, big budgets. The first thing the sort of sales lead said is, "I'm glad you're here. I need help with my all hands presentation."
So, and then you got the colouring in after that, I suppose, right? Exactly, yeah. So thank you for a great question, Chris. And I can see another question over there as well. So,
hi, it's
there we go. You got a microphone already. Excellent. There we
it's
go.
Amy from Bidwells.
Hi, Amy.
I have a question on the beginning of the conversation where you were talking about dashboards and data, and whether you had any tips for the approach on reporting specifically for professional services, where we need to play more of a long game and we can't necessarily attribute all of the sales to specific marketing activity. It's harder to prove.
Those fee earners are taking more of the credit than they should do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few professional services marketers around the room, I'm sure, who would like to. I don't think any of you works in professional services. Have you at all? No. Any thoughts on this?
No. So we do market to professional services. I get that. It's sometimes really hard to demonstrate the impact of marketing, and I think this is where your KPIs and metrics come in. So ensuring that you have both lead and lag indicators to show customer engagement, number of contacts, number of people influenced, how many touch points in that buyer journey are you touching is a key one. And therefore, sometimes you do need to align your metrics to the audience that you're selling to.
So, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I would just build on that by saying it's a joint game, right? We're not trying to claim credit. Initially, marketing shouldn't be claiming credit for something. It's about how do we move the needle forward? How do we get the overall organization moving forward? So regardless of who's doing the actual selling, if you can show you've made a change and there is more positive momentum, they're getting better conversations, there's more deals closing, those deals are a bigger value, then later you're going back to ask for more investment, more funding to do more of it. That's when you're starting to get into the attribution and the specifics of it. But for the first year, it's about changing how people feel about it often.
Yeah.
So we're just about out of time now, but one of the things we believe, it was very important, I think, to get across this session, communicating commercial value to the board, but upwards is everybody's job in marketing, and I hope that we've made that really, really clear. This is some work that we've done in Propolis about defining what we find as a commercial marketer, and some of our experts, Dave Rowlands, our head of content, Scott Stockwell, Shane Redding, and many others were involved in development of this, and it's been really impactful and effective. We're really happy with it as a piece of work, trying to define what it means to be a commercial marketer. If you'd like to know more about this, remember Propolis, you can download this. We also have some copies of the report about how to be a commercial marketer on the Propolis stand. So come and see us, come and ask us about this. But that's it for now. I hope you'll join me giving our panel a really warm round of applause. They've been excellent, really excellent.